links are not approved by senior corporate butt buddies of the government, whatever the hell. And I'm just going, really? Because it went to my send file, but it said it didn't go to you. So that's why I wanted to know if you got it.
Yeah.
So
Nope.
it's the same old crap.
All
right.
Weird.
Here we go.
It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Unfeared, here and declare your independence of me, Ernest Hancock, here in Phoenix, Arizona, from the BEA beautiful studios of Freeze with an S, FreezePhoenix.com. James Corbett, we got to get caught up on some stuff. There's a lot of things happening, and it's all about, the censorship is just getting to be crazy. I was trying to send James some information, we're going to talk about today, and it's like, oh, those links are not approved, and I'm like, wow, James, did you get the email from me, or you just got the email saying if you got the email?
I just got your error message. An error occurred while sending the mail. The mail server responded, message rejected, refer to error code section at blah, blah, blah.
That was the second one. The first one was, it had some kind of spam thing or notice, and then it didn't, this is, are you running into this kind of stuff in your communications?
Not that I know of, but if it doesn't send back an error message, how do you know? I often wonder, did they get that email or not? Or
we went through this when we were doing our email dispatch that we have the subscribers, and it went first AOL. Hell no, AOL doesn't, because they're back in the day anyway, but they definitely, the CIA doesn't want your emails. Then Yahoo was another one, and then there's some Gmail stuff going on, but it's a blanket thing. And then when we change email dispatch services, like email services, because you got to be whitelisted kind of thing. And then do you send 100 at a time, 50 at a time, get down to 25 at a time? And then are we going to go singles? And so, it's just all of this. We still are in the legacy system a little bit, but we're yanking out as fast as we can. I'm just, from Japan, how much do you see the machinations of the NSA and the U.S. surveillance state and Europe and all that? Does it relate to Japan in the same way it does to us here?
It's a good question. Obviously it does. Obviously the NSA's tentacles are everywhere, but I'm trying to think of how this actually intrudes in kind of the average consciousness here in Japan, and I am hard-pressed to think of examples of that, because I know there's been brouhahas with Merkel and others, oh my god, the US are spying on me, and things like this that have come out over the years, but I can't think of an equivalent scandal here in Japan. Maybe it's just
would it even be a scandal?
Exactly. I think that might be it. It's just the way it is.
What is the government system there? I know you have kind of a parliament, but after World War II, one of the conditions was they get to keep the emperor. The emperor gets to, be there. I just saw a news thing about the 12-year-old son of the emperor started school of doing something. So I guess there's still some kind of an emperor. How does that work?
Yeah, the emperor, that was one of the conditions that Japan wanted to have for surrender when they were trying to surrender back in July of 45, back or June, whatever it was. They said our one condition, we get to keep our emperor. And the US said, nope.
We got a bomb to drop.
Exactly. I think that was it. They were going to drop them So we don't want your surrender. And then after that, they said, okay, whatever, unconditional surrender. But they got to keep the emperor anyway, on the condition that he is not even a figurehead head of state. It's like, the queen is the head of the state of England or whatever. It's not even that. There is an emperor, there's an imperial family, but it's no
Do they
longer.
get a stipend of any kind?
Sorry?
Like money? I mean, do they get an annual salary for being emperor or something?
I'm sure they don't pay anything out of their own pockets. Whatever it is, I'm sure is funded by the state, but I don't know the setup of that. But yes, there is the emperor, interestingly enough, is abdicating. First time in 200 years, the Japanese emperor is abdicated. And so on April 31st, he will. Is it 31st? January, February, March, April, 30th? I always forget. He's going to hand over the reins. And then on May 1st, the new emperor is going to be crowned. So there's a big 10-day holiday festivity.
Okay, wait. The new, who'd he say? Fred the butler or my younger
his
cousin
son,
or
the next
what?
in line, the crown prince, is going to
okay.
take over the throne
All right,
as intended. It's just that he's stepping down before he dies, which is
okay,
unusual.
so the older one. All right.
Yeah.
All right. That would be interesting from Mr. James Corbett's perspective, Japan and its government, and you get the truth out, and they kick you out. I mean, would it be that bad?
Certain aspects of it, I'm sure. On the parliamentary level, probably not. It's like everywhere else. The parliamentary politicians are puppets that are meant to be, just changed every few years, like Birdcage Liner anyway. In fact, even more than every few years here in Japan, famously or infamously, Japanese prime ministers tend to last a year. Abe has lasted a very long time. So
I've been hearing his name for a long time. So
it's like 6 years now or something.
Yeah,
anyway, he's in it
name.
for a while. But generally the politician puppets are Birdcage Liner. But if you started going into the real connections, especially organized crime and the police and all of that stuff, I'm sure you get a knock on the door.
Yeah, the Yakuza. I didn't even think about that, man. You get all kinds of trouble. That has always been around. You got. But that's separate. How integrated are they with the government, if at all?
Oh, there's clearly, everyone knows there's kind of an agreed thing that goes on between police and the organized crime here, because if you're going to have crime, might as well be organized, right? That's a very Japanese mentality. As long as it's kind of circumscribed. We know where they're operating, and the police chief meets with the head of this crime family, and the crime family guy leaves the membership list in the garbage can and then goes out of the room so that the police chief can go and get it, that kind of stuff.
Same old. One thing I did watch a video today that you did with Davi Barker on authoritarian sociopathy. And I was really glad that you at least read the book. You went over it and I'm going, this is the one thing that didn't get said that I wanted to make sure got added, and I got my, opinion out, was that in there, the only time I saw that authority, emperor, prime minister, police, anybody, the only time that they ever did what they promised they were going to do is when they themselves saw their position as illegitimate. That's the only time anyone in power ever does what they're supposed to or promised, is trying to legitimize themselves in the minds of themselves, that they're legitimate because they took their oath seriously or something like that. And that's the only time in this, all of these studies, all of these experiments, all of these behavioral studies, to where someone, they're in a position of power, they just kind of go down the dark side. And I know you made a good comment, a good question that I had. Does power attract the bad sort, or does power create bad sorts? I mean, what was your thought on that?
Yeah, it's an important thing to differentiate, because I think the mentality is, it's just the bad people who go into politics. But it's even worse if it's also the position corrupts people. So I think it's not an either or, it's a both and. But evil and corrupt people are attracted to positions of power where they can do evil and corrupt things. But also, even good people with good intentions get in there and they start to be corrupted by the power. It's an old adage that we all know: power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's psychologically true and experimentally verifiably so, which is it's disturbing. And again, what is the only answer to that then? The positions of power themselves are the problem. Everyone thinks they can take the one true ring. I'll use it for good. I know what to do with it.
The freedom guys want to chuck it in the fires of Mordor.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
That was one thing that the power itself, and there is no fix. There is no, a good leader. I mean, the best leader is the one that doesn't want to be in charge. It's like by example or something. I'm just wondering, as time goes on, how are we going to organize? And I'll tell you one thing that really, necessity is the mother of invention kind of deal. What happens when we go to space? We colonize planets. What happens when resources get kind of thin? Do you is that when you really need leader? Then you need it, or is that when you don't need it? Or I mean, think about that. You're on Space Station Alpha of whatever. What do you think's going to happen? Elon Musk is going to go, anarchist. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Right. Well, we tend to think of this as if this is something new, but it's just an analogy to what we've been doing the entire of human history. I mean, when you colonize the new frontier, it was always the same. It would be lawless to an extent, but it would be natural law, as in, people know you don't go and mess with someone's family because they'll mess with you, or whatever it is, those kinds of things. And then, governments come along after the fact and take away that whatever freedom was there. I think we would expect something similar. And how would that look? Oh, maybe something like Moon is a harsh mistress. Use Moon as a penal colony. It sets up as this kind of separate thing that starts to evolve its own culture, and it has nothing to do with the government. And then they have a rebellion, an anarchist rebellion, and then they set up their own government.
Yeah, and AI helped them.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
That would be, I keep looking, I'm going to check here in a little bit. I keep looking for that movie to get made. It's like way too rebellious. Somebody's worried. They take that and put it on the shelf.
How would they make that into a nice Hollywood movie? I don't know.
It'd be interesting. We'll see. One of the shows that you did, the CFR loves domestic propaganda, and I thought that was a really good point to be made. And at the end of the presentation, a guy asks a question. Well, damn it, I hate when people ask, and we're done. He didn't answer the question. Tell us about that presentation and what your concerns were.
Yeah, I would hope that people would actually watch the full hour-plus panel. It's a slog, but it's worth it. It's about disinformation and fake news. So the Council on Foreign Relations, which I'm sure your listeners are familiar with by this point, the CFR was hosting this panel on disinformation and fake news. It's about a year ago, so some of the stuff they're talking about is a little bit dated, I suppose, in the 24/7 news cycle. But you get the idea. Yeah. They're talking about how do we counter this new thing that's happening online, and anyone can post anything, and blah blah blah. And it's all the kind of stuff you'd expect from the former editor of Time magazine, who is also the former Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy. What a title. The kinds of things they'd be pointing out, and it's Alex Jones and the gay frogs meme and all of this and stuff like this. It was ridiculous. But it was very instructive. There was one point at which the panel host, Richard Stengel, the former Time editor, said something like, I go around the world, I talk to people. The First Amendment is something that no one else on the planet gets, that no one else has anything like it, so they just don't understand it. And you go and you try to explain to people in the Middle East that, we have to protect people burning Qurans because it's about freedom of expression, and they just don't get it. And he said, this is the kind of thing where I have to be more pragmatic and say, it's not going to work. We can't do this. The rest of the world isn't on our side. He said something like that. I'm like, okay, so you're literally saying, we can't have principles or ideals if they bump up against, reality, and people are different. Oh, well, we won't conform to ideals. Anyway, there was just a lot of insightful moments like that where they kind of.
What was the question that the guy asked?
I'll say so. Yeah, so at the end, they're talking about master narratives. Someone asked a question about master narratives and how they control history. And so and this was in the context, a fairly mainstream leftist progressive context of the US isn't the US. It was colonized by the Europeans who were committed genocide on the natives, but we don't talk about that when we're talking about for news stories and blah blah blah. That was the gist of the question. So they're responding to that, and one thing Richard Stengel says is, another name for master narratives is history, and it's just this is the way it's done kind of thing. And so somebody comes up and says, well, yeah, but the third world has been a victim of these master narratives for as long as America has been imperialist, and it's propaganda. That's what it is, and this is how it functions, and it keeps the third world down. And so he says, "Okay, no time for that question."
Damn it,
That
I
was
hate
stupid.
when they ask the questions and we're done. You know, this happened. It's coming at us from so many vectors.
Hold on. Because think of that. That's in the context of disinformation and fake news, and we're going to set what is respectable and acceptable for news organizations to talk about. As soon as they get one person sticking up and questioning and saying, "Look, what you're doing is spreading fake news," discussion over. We're out of here. No question. No questions.
It was abruptly question. All right, questions, and not that one. I mean, and then we're done. And I was like, wow. And then you look at who these guys were just in your clip, and I'm. This is public discussion. You know, this is it.
Yeah.
The only time you get.
This is what they want. They want to be able to shut down the discussion at the exact point that they start getting questioned on it, because that is exactly how it's functioned for so long in the corporate media matrix. I mean, there was no way to put your voice into the corporate media stew 20 years ago.
You could do the campaign
letters to the
thing.
Editor.
You do the campaign thing. Them damn libertarians up there saying what's for, and they go.
And what's the first thing they'll do?
Allowed.
They'll shut you down.
Yep. You're not allowed. We've been more successful here in Arizona, but it was from a lot of creativity and a lot of work over the years. But I'm going to show the audience this one article here. Zuckerberg's plea: regulate me before I violate people's privacy again. Now, this was the title from Reason.com. And it's becoming more and more obvious, and I'm wondering if Zuckerberg would eventually be the perfect example of the authoritarian sociopathy, is when he finally has to break through the cognitive dissonance and he sees himself as the evil person, that he's the one that's responsible for a lot of this stuff. So it's got to be that you have at some point, that he's going, I'm being bad. I'm bad. I'm being really bad. Do you think, is he just a college kid that got taken advantage of? Was he a willing participant? Then you start getting all kinds of conspiracies about, where he grew up and his family, blah, 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 blah. This is going to be an excellent movie of not social media, the one that
I was going to say they did that one.
Well, that just got up to launching. I mean, I'm interested in the movie from then and little secret meetings behind the whatever the hell. Is he a product of the system, the government, the whatever, or is he just being abused? What do you think his story is going to wind up being?
Well, look, he was a scumbag from the beginning. Way back before Facebook was a big thing, when it was still, I think, just on Harvard. He was already at that point taking people's data that had logged into his system and their passwords in order to guess their passwords on other systems. He was also
to what end?
It was something to do with some competitor that was setting something up or something. I can't remember, but he wanted to basically crack something else, so he used his users' data, and that was, I mean, way back at the beginning. There's chat records that he was having with someone at the time, again when this was still brand new, and he was saying, oh look, I got all these email addresses and passwords and everything. It's amazing. They must trust me. And the guy said, oh, how did you do that? And he said, I don't know. I just set it up and they did it. Dumb Fs. He literally called his users dumb idiots, essentially, for giving them all his data. And that was at the very beginning, before any of this took off. So I'm willing to believe, sure, maybe again, like Google, Brandon Page, maybe they were genuine whiz kids who came up with something good. But as soon as that happens, they get scooped up by the big boys. Hey, we got something for you. And that's where the venture capital money came in. Right. Might have heard of, Jim Breyer and all of that. So.
It was Peter. Who was Sean Parker? Is that what it was? I think I was.
Yeah, Sean Parker was the what's it called? The Napster guy.
Yeah, right.
But that was kind of, that's kind of the social network movie kind of stuff. No. Jim Breyer, who was on that board of what's it called? Capital, who served with In-Q-Tel guy. There was no direct In-Q-Tel connection, but it was like 2 degrees of separation.
Yeah, no. There is no way that you're going to have something like, if not from the beginning, sure as hell now.
Exactly.
You think the United States government is going to go, yeah, we don't want to mess with that Facebook thing. It's because for any reason. Of course they are, because they got so much data. We had a gentleman on today. We've been doing your IPFS thing and so on. That's really taken off. Sterling Lujan we have on Friday, which is the PR guy for Bitcoin.com and Roger Ver and Bitcoin Cash and so on. And he said that one of their projects is they took all of Assange WikiLeaks stuff and they put it on IPFS. And they're going, yep, and here it is forever and always, na. And I'm really looking forward to talking to Sterling, because I'm going, we had this conversation at Acapulco a couple months ago. I'm like, let me tell you what can happen. So it's really interesting to see how that went. And I'm seeing that a lot of people, they want to do battle with these guys in the government and regulate it properly and all. I'm like, why are you wasting the time? I'm just looking for what they do or say doesn't matter. And how would it change what you say and do? Or do you self-regulate at all because of these kinds of controls, or you just don't care?
Because of censorship?
Yeah, because they shut it down, they come after you and knock on your door. You know what? I don't think I am going to cover the emperor issue in Japan while I'm in Japan.
Yeah, right,
I mean, yeah.
Well, I try not to, but it's so insidious that at some point you go, well, where is that line, and where do I draw that line? Case in point, that we had a New World Next Week last summer, I think, last year sometime. It was about the case of the guy. He was like a Lion King Broadway production set designer or something who got busted for 3D printing a gun or something.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that story was going to be the cover story for that New World Next Week. So we're thinking about the thumbnail to put on YouTube, right? And the thumbnail, the one that would suggested itself to me, the Lion King, the iconic,
He's
the
holding up
monkey
Simba,
holding up
yeah.
Simba. Well, how about holding up a 3D printed gun or something like that, or a 3D printed
3D printer.
But at that point, I'm like, oh, but that's going to be a violent image, which you can't have on a thumbnail like that. It'll get stricken or age restricted. So maybe we should just have a kind of generic 3D printed image, 3D printed gun image for the thumbnail. And so we did that. And then, but at that point, well, is that a compromise? Did I sell out because I was thinking about the censorship possibilities, and how far? And then if you make that change, well, then maybe you'll make another change. Maybe you'll start to change your reporting, and that's the slippery slope. And you got to keep the mental barriers up against that.
This reporting thing and journalism having an impact on us. This Assange thing, did that have an impact on you at all? You have an opinion?
Yeah. Well, I really want to see how this is going to play out, because clearly the indictment that they have him on isn't what they're going to ultimately stick him with. I mean, this is about something bigger, that they're going to set a precedent. The thing they've indicted is just to get him extradited. But I've heard that the extradition treaty doesn't allow him to be charged with more once he gets there. So, yeah, we'll see how that works.
Trump,
but I can't believe.
Well, the Trump administration, certainly Trump, the candidate, was WikiLeaks.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm.
Yeah, but again, it's why do people take Trump seriously? He just says whatever is convenient in that moment.
Well,
why
this is why a lot of people, they go, oh, he does too know something about it. He goes, hey, I don't know anything. Not me, man. I know nothing. I know nothing. And I'm going, until he finds out what the focus group is. It's going to be the polling. It's going to be, I guarantee whatever, 55 point whatever % plus decide, however it's worded, that's going to be his position. I just feel it. He's just one of those guys. So I don't know what he's going to do. Is he trying to make nice with intelligence community? Is some people in the intelligence community that were supporting him glad Assange was there and Snowden and so on? Is the whole thing against him? Is it the deep state that they really pissed off? Is it? I have no freaking idea.
Part of the deal, who knows what 17th layer of whatever calculation goes into this. And as long as his base isn't upset about it. I mean, who knows? Who cares? At the end of the day, the people who think that Trump is Satan incarnate and the people who think he's the God savior of the universe are both ridiculously wrong. He's just a politician. He says whatever's convenient in the moment. He has no ideology and doesn't care. and you're an idiot for thinking otherwise. Not you, Ernie, but people out there who think otherwise, right? So I don't care what Trump thinks about this, but the worst part about Assange is that, yeah, I mean, clearly this is being used as a precedent for what can and cannot be done, whistleblowers and journalists and accreditation and all of this. They're going to try to set some sort of precedent here that will be a terrible precedent, which puts me in the position of, I guess, defending Assange per se. Look, the phony debate about Assange and what he endangered U.S. troops or whatever is nonsense. The real story of WikiLeaks is, what kind of intelligence operation is it? I mean, it's some sort of intelligence op. It's a cutout for someone in some way. Maybe Assange doesn't even know that. I mean, he's just being fed information, but by whom and for what purposes? This is what the WikiLeaks is, and no less a personage than Zbigniew Brzezinski pointed this out back. I vividly remember seeing this. I think it was on Morning Joe, because I think he was talking to his daughter Mika, right? And it was 2011-ish, and he was talking about this. WikiLeaks would be a perfect intelligence cutout.
Oh, Brzezinski. I thought you were talking about Joe Scarborough. Yeah. Zbigniew Brzezinski, Brzezinski, his daughter is Mika on Morning with Joe or whatever, right?
Yeah. Right.
When I found that at Scott Horton told me, I'm going, what?
Yeah.
Then you look at her history, how she came up after 9/11 and through you kind of skyrocket. Man, they don't even hide it anymore.
Small circles, huh? Inside the Beltway, but yeah, and I vividly remember seeing him say that and pointing it out at the time, and I'm like, Brzezinski's right. He was a good conspiracy theorist, and I made an episode of my podcast, Meet Zbigniew Brzezinski, Conspiracy Theorist, where I go through all the times he let on a lot out in public because he was allowed to, and then he would poo-poo conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theorists are alleging there's some sort of quest for global government, but in reality, well, there are certain negotiations that happen over the table and under the table, and then he'd go on to expound his conspiracy theories. He let a lot out of the bag, and this is one of them where he's talking about, WikiLeaks is a perfect intelligence operation. It's a cutout. You just leak certain information, or you withhold certain information and make sure that the narrative skews this way or that way. That's exactly right. So I don't know to what extent Julian Assange is on the level or what level he's on. I don't know. I don't care. All I know is that this case is going to be used to set a precedent that's going to be horrible for everyone on the internet.
Yeah, see, it's a journalistic thing. It's like, one of the deals, you have the New York Times, the Pentagon Papers, you have Washington Post with all the president's men, the Watergate and so on. You have, there's a lot of precedent throughout history. He didn't steal the data. He just published it, and they're freaked out about it. Now, of course, they're trying to say that he materially helped Manning get it or something like that.
Trying to crack passwords and stuff.
Yeah, but I'm like, so. My thing is they don't talk about what like a libertarian would want to discuss is how is it that they take my money, do all this stuff in my name, and then they're secret from me, but they want to know everything that I do. There's something jacked up about this entire mindset that they have, and I'm glad that this is brought up. So I'm no. Now,
the craziest part of all of this is how completely the left-right charade game has flipped over the last decade, where, of course, the left loved WikiLeaks until 2016, and then it's the whole Russiagate thing, and now the left, I guess, hates Assange. Like, how is this gonna balance out? I don't know, but anyway.
You think so?
There's definitely some bad blood there.
See, Trump is not coming out in support. If he would come out in support of Assange right away, the left would immediately be against him. Okay,
it's true.
So he's just sitting back. I don't know. I know nothing about nothing. I'm a nothing knower. Okay, and so I'm not really sure how this is going to play out. What I'm doing here while you were talking, I wanted you to see this one graphic, and it's just hilarious. And it's a good photo of Trump here. I'll show the audience so that they can see this. Okay, it just says, in reality, they're not after me, they're after you. And at the bottom it says, I'm just in the way. And I go, and I sent that to some, Dr. Frank, Trump guy and all that kind of stuff. And man, it's like his new favorite graphic. It's going up on everything. And it does ring kind of true, whether it's true or not.
Right.
My thing is that, yeah, they're definitely going after something. And I think I'm included in it. And is Trump in the way? Do you get the impression Trump's in the way of them coming to get me and my children and future and grandkids and everything?
My take on this is about the same as my take on left right in general, is that it's just competition for who's going to manage the whole thing. I mean, they both want the same thing in the end. They both want to manage you. It's just they want to be the manager. In this case, it's Team Trump versus the Beltway insiders or whatever. But is it really versus them? Because all he's done is appointed neocon, bloodthirsty, horrible maniacs to every possible position he could think of. And including Alexander Acosta as his labor secretary, the man who cut the sweetheart plea deal with Epstein, who Trump called that heck of a guy. He's a fun guy. Yeah.
I got to give you this. I just heard I don't even remember who said it. Anyway, it goes like this. It was Vince Suprenowitz from Vegas. He used to be Las Vegas Review-Journal editor. He goes like this. He goes, yeah, Alexandria, occasional cortex. Occasional cortex. I'm like, that's
cortex,
awesome. Because
that's about right.
I could never remember her name. Whatever. Occasional cortex. That's her new name for me, man. That's good. That's
it works. Better than the OC.
Alexandria, occasional cortex. Stuff like that gets you in trouble. There's a lot of other things going on, and I'm really interested, being in the East as you are, that how China's playing out on this thing. I'm getting the impression they got their own economic issues and problems, but they got a long-term game of something. Do you have any idea what it might be?
Yeah. There is a faction in the U.S., in the nest of power, that does see China as a threat and is trying to fight it. But
a threat in what way?
Economic.
Just
primarily,
economic.
I think that's
Okay.
what it's about. But I think there's the layer above them. It's like you're not at our pay grade. You don't understand.
Right.
No. This is part of the game plan. So I think what Bannon and people like that truly do, I'm sure, do really believe that China is the enemy, but they don't understand how this game is being played. Interesting example of that came out this past week. I can't remember which particular weapon system it was.
Railgun.
New tactical laser system, similar to a U.S. Navy system, has just been announced, and they're showing side-by-side comparisons. It's the same thing. How did the Chinese get this American military technology? And so I'm going to be writing about that in the Forecaster this weekend, because it's not just this one laser system. It's thing after thing. Drones and aircraft carriers and all this stuff are all exact replicas of American military stuff. It's like, how are they getting all this technology? Oh, I think I know how this game is played, because it's the exact same game that was played in the Cold War. It was how the Vietnamese were fighting back against the Americans with, or the Koreans as well, with military hardware that was made in the Ford plant in Gorski and other things like this. It's like all these American American technologies were being produced in these American affiliated manufacturers that were based in the Soviet Union, that were part of this Lend-Lease that was going on. Anthony Sutton did all the legwork on this and traces, this type of.
Oh, you're talking about your World War I conspiracy.
That was part of this deal.
Yeah, your World War I conspiracy thing, right?
That starts to broach. Yeah, Anthony Sutton, he talks about the Bolshevik Revolution as well.
Yeah, no,
but
I
yeah,
remember
he got into the.
Yeah, it was. If it wasn't for the Allies feeding, these people, making sure they had food through Belgium, or they wouldn't have. The war wouldn't have continued. And we got to have wars continuing, So it's a lot of this stuff. But we're getting into existential kind of stuff. I had to look that up. Everybody keeps saying existential threat here and there. I go, what the hell does that mean? An extinction event. And I'm going, existential to what? Life is to a way of life, to a a way of government. And when the West falls or the East falls, there's all governments going to be falling all over the place. But when they do, they're going to blame something. And to blame capitalism, America, I haven't lived under capitalism my entire life. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. So there's no a free market, sure as hell not that. So when things do go, what do you think they're going to blame? Who gets to blame?
Actually, this goes right back to Anthony Sutton's research, because he wrote Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution, Wall Street and the FDR, and Wall Street and the rise of the Nazis, the rise of Hitler. And his point was that isn't it funny, all of the major socialist movements and revolutions in the early part of the 20th century, in Russia, in America with the New Deal and all of that, and in Nazi Germany, all of them were funded, promoted, helped along, literally made possible by Wall Street financiers. And his ultimate point in this, as he came back to a number of times in his interviews, is what they're trying to do is set up a global form of governance that will be a melding of at that time, the Cold War, the West and the East, it's going to be the capitalist and socialist systems melded together. That's what they want to do. They want to have essentially monopoly state-run capitalism of one form or another. And it's not going to be, it's not the ideals of what America was founded on and all of that, Declaration of Independence and what have you. It's going to be an abrogation of that. And that's still the game plan.
Yeah, see, this is a good point, and makes the same point that you're making about Zuckerberg. When he goes, those dumb craps, give me all they're stupid. I've seen that quote all over the place. And I'm going, well, of course. People like that, people, with that kind of capability, people that I'm going to be filthy, stinking rich, and these stupid people are going to give me all the data from their personal lives to make me rich. Okay, and who wants to have all this data? And he took all my data because he could, and because you did, and you gave. There has to be a fundamental change on us, and it's not that I really want us to change. From being trusting and forgiving and all that kind of stuff, because I think that's what makes humanity, the best parts of us. But I don't want to be stupid. And what are we looking, for to be stupid? It's this delegation of everything to everybody on the promise of convenience or something. We got to start taking some responsibility for our own lives and our own data and our own something. Think about, talk about that a little bit. What do you think needs to happen?
Yeah, well, as I've talked
James
about,
Corbett videos.
Well, for the past decade, I've been talking about the revolution of consciousness is the only revolution that matters, because you keep coming back to the point in history where, we need something, we need a revolution, we can't stand it anymore. So you have the French Revolution, let's chop off their heads, and suddenly they're chopping off everyone's head, and then you get this military dictator to come along to consolidate a French empire. What was this revolution about again? Who knows? We got Napoleon now. So this is the way it always works, because people expect that somehow chopping off heads and just changing the government is going to change humanity. No, we have to change humanity. And then the government that's on top of that won't matter, because it'll melt away. It'll be like the Marxist utopia. So you're exactly right. It's about our mentality. And in a mentality that was, I would say, more prevalent in the United States a couple hundred years ago, every infringement on, hey, we have these rights, let's this is a horrible, was at the very least an infringement, a knowing infringement. You had the Whiskey Rebellion, you had things because people said, hey, we didn't set this up for this. Maybe they were naive enough to be conned into allowing a federal government in the first place, but anyway, that wasn't the spirit. And so it is about the spirit and about preserving that spirit of individuality and humanity.
I think that's what they have to beat out of us. They have to get out of us. They have to.
Well, but do they? I mean, that's the thing. Well, look at history. How many times has that really flourished to that degree in human history? Not often. No. They make the point. Where was I? I was reading this recently about China and I think it was Patrick Wood posted up to technocracy.news something about China and technocracy and analysis or something, which was from kind of a mainstream think tank talking about how China is not really communist, it's a technocracy. And one of the points they were making there is that, or maybe it was a different, anyway, I was reading something where they were talking about the social credit score and all this Orwellian stuff that's going in. And they were making the point Well, the Chinese people have never really had a conception of individual rights and freedoms, anyways. There's always been an autocratic ruler that's basically been a tyrant throughout their entire history. It's just part of their culture.
Yeah, the Boxer Rebellion was kind of not round eye. I mean, it was definitely kick out them and more us. Probably as a collective, not as individuals. But there was a lot of Chinese that were pissed off. So I guess that's probably the closest thing.
Yeah, but pissed off at the foreigners, right?
Yeah, and it was still, they were abusing them. We got to have our guys abuse us, not you,
Yeah.
So it's
not pissed off at Chinese rulers necessarily.
Right, no, they're not allowed. Okay, I wanted to go over some stories real quick. That's why I sent you some stuff. And I'm sorry you're not seeing them, but if you go to the front page, you'll be seeing this stuff. One of them, it was kind of cool. I'm showing my grandson here. He's 5 years old, and I go, you want to see this? And I look at this. Watch a pack of Boston Dynamics creepy robot dogs pull a truck. So they have this big, like a U-Haul truck. It's a Boston Dynamics truck, but it's like a big, box U-Haul. And you have like reindeer, they're set up in a harness, and there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's probably like 16 robots. And you just see these robots kind of in a line going, and all of a sudden you see them pulling a truck. And then he wanted to go, and he goes, wow, that's kind of go, yeah. They got one that's got like a hand on top. They got one that's got, and it was using video cameras to pull, watch the train do this. And then I go, we got Atlas, doing backflips, and we got the mule going around hauling stuff for the Marines, and we got and opening doors down. And I go, isn't that scary? He goes, why? So I didn't want to bust his bubble a whole bunch and everything. I go, I don't want one chasing me. And then I showed him the cheetah one that's running around. And so I didn't want to bust his bubble. I mean, this is kind of cool stuff as a kid and everything. Scares me, though. I mean, are you relatively concerned Boston Dynamics, Google, whatever's out there got chase you down robots?
It's some of the creepiest stuff that I can imagine. And it's especially creepy when they try to make it cute and everything. I know Boston Dynamics has been doing a lot of that recently. I talked about it in Propaganda to Watch, where they have even like the dancing robots and stuff. And it's this attempt to make it
synchronized. There's a swarm, isn't it cool?
No, it's so creepy. And I wonder how much of that is a result of kind of the Hollywood programming we've had of Terminator and all of that stuff. But for me, it's impossible to look at that stuff without thinking that, yeah, oh, great, cute and cuddly when they're programmed to be cute and cuddly. How about if they're programmed to kill me? What do you do in that situation?
Well, this is the next one I wanted to show. It's called an XM556 microgun, and it is a small, you remember Predator when you had Jesse Ventura and that big Gatling gun? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Imagine it about 20% that size. It's about, maybe less than 2 feet long. It has a Gatling gun on it, and it belt fed just that you can hand hold and go around. Hell, you can put it under your jacket, So I'm going, yep, that's gonna go on top of one of these little robots.
Exactly.
and we're screwed. And what's happening is Russia's already doing it. Russia's going, yeah, man, we're just mass producing now here. We're good. We'll get little bitty tanks and little razor thing, go out and just whip ass. And Ninja Jeep, whatever the hell. Do you think the next major superpower conflict, are we morphing into this kind of stuff?
Oh, we can't even possibly imagine what the next conflict will look like, because if you think what the U.S. military or any other military has up their sleeve, you don't know anything. Whatever they're working on behind their 17 layers of secrecy will be crazy. Some of the latest that they're talking about is, oh, hey, we just discovered through satellite imagery, China's got this laser base out somewhere where they're apparently going to be able to shoot down satellites. Again, how much of this is just garbage nonsense propaganda that they're feeding us? How much of it is real? Whatever the truth is, it'll be 15 times crazier than that. And yeah, what would a real all-out major world power conflict look like at this point? Again, as crazy as World War I was to people living through World War I, they'd never seen anything like this. That's going to be the same effect this time, except orders of magnitude more deaths, which is almost
creepy. Okay, well, here's some positive. Well, it depends how it's used. I'm optimistic, but SpaceX now $500 million fundraising for 75 Starlink satellites. Blah blah blah. What's going on is there's going to be a constellation of ubiquitous Wi-Fi everybody on the planet's going to get access to the internet. Now what? Well, of course, Bezos is right behind him. Elon's going, copycat. I mean, that kind of thing. So ouch, quit it. We're going to have ubiquitous Wi-Fi, and Jeff Bezos is going to give everybody a phone in developing countries, and it opens up homepage on Amazon Prime or something. So how do you think that's going to impact the world? Positive, negative? What's the mixed bag here?
Well, is it going to be Wi-Fi or is it going to be 5G? I mean, eventually we're going to get some kind of, network like that.
I have no idea. I mean, it'll be whatever is going to be the
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, so there's the whole environmental health factor to all of this. And I'm sure I heard you talking about this recently with someone. I can't remember who you were talking
No,
about.
we've been talking about 5G.
Oh, Max Egan. I was listening to your Max Egan conversation where they're talking about it. Eventually just tune in the right frequency on the 5G and dial in emotions, dial in.
Yeah,
action.
this is one thing. It was a short story that I kind of had in mind of. A friend of mine, she's a science fiction author, and I just kind of, thought I said out loud what I was concerned about in the future. Ooh, that's good. I don't know if that ever got legs, but it was this. There was a young man in India that came up with 3 to 5 scents or chemicals that you could put in combination, and it was able to generate any smell. So that if you are watching a movie, you have a soundtrack, you have the video, and then you could have a smell track. So on these certain oils or whatever that's on your cable box or coming out of your TV with little cartridges or something, you're getting the battle, the sea spray of you're watching some ocean thing or the guts
Television.
on the battlefield of Saving Private Ryan or something, right?
Yep,
So smell has an enormous impact on your memory and so on. Well, I'm going, there's going to come a time, and then it was media. Truth in Media. I think, Dykes, these guys, they do stuff. They had where they found a patent to where they're, controlling your emotions and so on, the electromagnetic whatever. And I'm going, through the television and so on. And I remember saying this back in the 90s when it was during the Clinton administration. I go, Hillary's going to run for president someday. There's going to be a commercial, and all of a sudden I'm going to get semi-excited, and give me a something. I'm going, yeah, she's kind of hot, and I want her, I'd vote for her. As soon as that happens, I know I'm being screwed with. You see my point? There's going to be something. It's smell combination with a brainwave, with a 5G or something. Is the 5G going to be able to have an emotional impact on you? Stand down, slow down, sick, nausea, health, something. And I'm going, if they can maintain, enhance, expand their intrusiveness, control, and dominance over the people, they are. So I just need, can they? Does this stuff, is it some kind of mind-altering thing? Or you've been hearing anything about that?
I'm sure that that's out there. I haven't done the research to be able to say, to that degree of detail. But if they can, they will. And you made an important point when you were talking to Max Egan, which is, there will always be human flourishing of freedom because, we're hardwired this way, unless they can change humanity. And
Right.
that has been the game plan for a long time.
That's my concern. They change me. They can't beat, it's like Gattaca. That was the whole thing. The human spirit, you just can't until they can change you,
Yeah.
And I'm just feeling the changing of coming on, and in so many different ways. I saw we had on Freedom's Phoenix a story about them in splicing human DNA into monkeys to make them smarter. I'm what? Didn't they make Planet of the Apes based on that? Wow. Two other things before we run out of time. One, it was Philip Giraldi. Always, whatever he has to say, is of interest. And he's going, Trump dances to Israel's tune. That pretty much just kind of covers it. This Trump-Israel thing, what up with that? What do you think?
It's just clear that Trump is in whatever way pretty much owned by Israel. I mean, it's crazy. No president has ever been this much on board. And we were talking about
proud of it and not shy either.
Yeah, well, there you go. We were talking about it last week where people were saying, because supposedly Obama and Bibi didn't quite get along, and they didn't have the best relationship. So people were saying, well, if this is what it looks like when they don't get along, I wonder how much worse it would be if they did get along. Well, this is
Right.
it. This is the unilateral declaration of, hey, Golan Heights, go in there, Genie Energy. It's all for you. All this kind of stuff.
Yeah, did you take a look at that stuff?
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
been
seen that,
swirling.
yeah.
It's been swirling around for years now.
That's
But yeah, clearly.
Yeah, that is just plain ass weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Notre Dame Cathedral burning down and so on. Now, it was rebuilt after the French Revolution in mid 1700s or so, whenever it was, late 1700s. And when was that? When was the French Revolution? It was
1789.
Yeah, okay. So here we have it being rebuilt again. They've already, that last time I checked, it keeps going up. It was $450-500 million. I mean, that's going to be $1 billion. They made money. But the one thing that, they're not showing is that all of these Catholic and other churches being firebombed, under attack, arson, and they're not skipping to the end and going, oh, it was an arson. No, it just kind of happened. Hundreds of years it's been, and all of a sudden it just started burning. And I'm going, is this intentional censorship of what's happening, or is somebody else just trying to make a big deal out of this Muslim thing, or what do you think's going on?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah, we could go meta with it. Yeah, because they'll know if we don't give a lot of details, people will jump to the conclusion it was terrorism, which might stir up some more whatever. If people want to play with chaos, there's a million ways to do it, right? A story like this, I'm sympathetic to the idea that there may be some more esoteric occultic thing going on here, the burning of Notre Dame. Maybe there's some bit deeper significance to it, but that's kind of above my pay grade. I don't know. This is one of those stories. Let's wait to see what the reaction is, because that will probably tell us a lot about what the story actually is.
It's 3 weeks. So, the one thing that I would like to get your view on is our reverence for history or nostalgia or old buildings and old things, because it gets kind of ridiculous. They're just using it as an excuse to save some building that they want to do for whatever reason. They don't want something. And is that a common thing throughout history? Has it always been that way? Have we ever been, hey man, just get rid of the old and give us some new, maybe we'll save the doorknob or something? I mean, what is this reverence for this kind of stuff? I mean, there's some art in there. I mean, I don't want the Sistine Chapel to,
well, that's the thing. I think it's a natural human inclination to have respect and reverence for the past in some sense. This was created hundreds or thousands of years ago. This is part of history. It connects us to our ancestors. That seems like a natural human thing. It can obviously be exploited and played on for purposes. Oh well, we can't change that. It's tradition. It's history. We can't. It's our link to the past. But then again, I'm equally or maybe even more suspicious of people who want to do away with everything. Who cares? That was the old. That's the past. Let's change everything, because those revolutionaries tend to be the kind that want ultimate 100% power over everything, and are generally aided by the forces that want chaos and order out of chaos.
What it always comes down to me, it's not an individual decision or anybody's property. It's like everything has to belong to everybody, which means it belongs to nobody, which it belongs to the will of and the majority of something. I don't know. It's like religion. There is truth. There's a truth of something. People there is a truth, another level of something, a truth. Well, that gets exploited, especially if it's true. They know that little string to twang in your cortex. I mean, that little worship, that little, make you think this about and feel and get the, EBGBs or, the hair stand up. They kind of, they just keep plucking it and plucking it and plucking it and telling you, to keep plucking it, and why you should pluck it and how you're going to keep it plucked is by doing whatever the hell it is that they want you to do. And it's always truth that is bastardized in support of all this kind of crap. And when you say it's inherent in us that we have some reverence for the past, or just the beauty of it, or the history of it, or it's just, I don't want to like use it for firewood or something. It's like them taking down, but it's happened throughout the past. And, many cultures have taken apart, the great buildings in Greece and Rome and Egyptian pyramids and whatever, and they go, we're going to build this building over here, and there's some blocks there, And I understand. It's just that, like you said, there's something inherent in us, and each one of these things in humanity's makeup is taken advantage of in every way, whether there's some spiritual thing, whether there's some reverence for something, even, towards your parents or kids or whatever. It's something that's exploited, and that's where they go, oh, it's for the children, Well, if we can save one life and all this other crap, it's we're being taken advantage of.
But yeah, ask yourself why. It's because it works. The thing that they, them, those, you've got to give them credit for is they're very intelligent, very, very intelligent, and they, them, those, they know that there are certain things that are facts of the world. You have to work with the facts of the world as they are. So you identify some part of human nature or some fact as it exists, and you go, how can we use that for our purposes? Let's set up a context in which that will do.
This is it. This is good right here. No more porn. What is UK porn ban, and when does it start, and can you unlock it? United Kingdom is going to, nope, you're not allowed to view porn anymore. Somebody's going to have something to say about that. I was there. I just want to see what the blowback is on this one. So I have this kind of censorship and restriction on adults looking at image. But the United Kingdom has a fee for watching TV.
Yeah, exactly.
So
they already determined they can tell you what you can and can't watch and how much you have to pay. Yeah, exactly. So there you go. Fair enough. Yeah, it's one of those issues where, of course, it's about freedom of expression and no government can or should have the right. But then again, I'm also sympathetic to the idea that pornography has been seeded into the culture as a way of demoralizing the culture. I think there is some. Yeah,
I'm not. Like when I have 4 teenagers, at the time. And, my sons, it's when the internet first started and they're playing online poker and there's porn. So I'm just don't pollute your mind with that. You don't need to. It's your hormones are going. You're way too susceptible to all kinds of. I did all I could to explain it to them and kind of give them the intellectual conversation for it. But I mean, what are you going to do? That's the only way you can really prepare. And I can't ban it. I can't. So I think it's knowledge, and that's why I'm such an advocate of your work. Is with this kind of knowledge, just history and knowledge and the truth and knowledge and understand what's going on and knowledge and a continual learning mentality and just, even have the file system you can recognize truth when you see it. And I'm just going, this is the only way we're going to come out of this, breathing. What do you think? Things will get bad. Do you think there's going to be this, billions of people dead? I mean, is it going to be a zombie apocalypse? Oh my God. I mean, it's like they're freaking trying to do it. What do you think's really going to happen? Are we going to yank from the precipice and kind of ignore them or what?
I don't know. Let's put it that way.
I don't know. I think,
are they going to try it? And I think the only answer to that question is if they think their plans necessitate it, I don't think they would hesitate for a moment. Yeah. That's the thing. There's no compassion or compunction about it. If it requires killing 6 billion people so that you can have 1 billion manageable people, I'm sure they would do it.
There's a webpage somebody sent me from Missouri, a farmer there, a good friend. He sent this. He goes, oh, this is it. It's called Honest Government Ad, Julian Assange. It's 2 minutes. And it was just, attractive women, up there doing this kind of journalist thing. Well, we're going to do it. And it was just an honest, depiction of what they're doing with the Julian. And, I might end the show with that, but it's just go to Freedom's Phoenix and you'll see it. But
we're America's bitch.
Right, that one.
Yeah.
What did you think of that? I mean, the fact that you could do this, some countries it's not allowed, and it might have been. I was thinking it was that one when I sent you the email. The topics I wanted to talk about. When I sent that, I'm thinking it might have been that one that triggered the spam. You're not allowed to send this email.
Right. Well, it could be. Who knows?
How the hell we know?
But my take on that is actually I get why that will be popular and will push buttons and maybe even effective as propaganda, but it's not really. I mean, that's not really what's at stake here. It's not about whether Britain can stand up to America and thus not extradite Assange. It's more about, well, what did he actually do? Is this something that we should be doing rather than are you America's bitch? Like, I get it. It's just trash talking. If you do this, you're going to be a bitch. It's
what
like calling
makes you think that we're not the Queen's bitch?
Yeah, exactly. It's not fundamentally what the issue that
it's not clear.
I get why it's going to be popular and a lot of people will chuckle and pass it on, but I don't think it's.
Yeah, I'm wondering how many. Well, I'll take a look and see when was it put up and how many views it has.
I think it got a few 100,000 when I looked at it.
It's 343,000 views, and it was put up like yesterday or April 15th.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get sent. I'm sure you do too. I get sent a lot of stuff, and people, and it's amazing how much stuff makes it to Freedom's Phoenix. I'll put it up. I'm going, yeah, it's a wide range of just. Wow, these are the people that read our site and listen to the show. This is the stuff that they think's important. So I put it up not because I think it, does anything other than timestamping, the chronology of what's going on and what's in people's heads. And but what you do is totally different. You're picking something that you think is of great importance, and you're digging behind it and telling the full story in its context. Before you go, tell the people, what it is that you do. Anyone that hasn't, looked at your site, thecorbettreport.com, thecorbett, CORBETT report.com. You go there and everything is a gem. Everything it furthers the discussion. It furthers your knowledge. It gives you go, aha. After you get done watching all of James' videos, all of a sudden, any new piece of data that comes in, you already got the file system for it. You know where it goes. You know where gap it fills. Sometimes you go like Genie Energy. You go, hey, put this one in your puzzle, man, because here we go. You already see what's coming. So what is it that draws your eye to something and that you finally get up the gumption that you put your system in gear, you do the research, you write the text, you send it to Brock West, he does a video, it makes it out. What is it?
Actually, that's a good analogy about the filing system because that's kind of the way that I operate. I rely on people like yourself or James Evan Pilato or other people who aggregate all these different news stories as they're happening. And I have the mental file system, I guess. I'll remember, oh yeah, this story, okay. And then it could be a year later, it could be 5 years later, it could be next month. I get another piece of information and that kind of links up with that other one. And I go, oh, okay, there's something there. And then the gears start turning and I start to, then once I'm honed in, maybe I should look at this subject. Then it's a question of gathering as much information and trying to put it together in a narrative. So what is that thing that attracts me to any particular subject? I don't know. I mean, it's just sometimes it's just random.
No, it's not. No. If you look at all your stuff, it always has a theme. I mean, I can do it right now. I can tell you, okay, because I can see it's the same kind of freedom, leave me alone-ist genre of something, and it's the same thing with me when I did the Pirates Without Borders. We picked like 8 categories, and each of these categories is like the decentralization of this type of thing, communication, energy, shelter, that kind of thing. And let's go over some of these of just the top ones with you. All right, Davi Barker, authoritarian sociopathy, this authority thing. The dark history of the minimum wage. Oh, that was awesome. Okay, the dark history of the minimum wage. Now, as I've argued it before, it's always you take away that bottom rung. You can't quite get on the ladder to success because, you don't have any skills and they're not going to pay you $1 gazillion and you don't know anything kind of deal. So, but you went back and found out, well, hell, that was the reason they did it. Explain that to people.
Yeah, I'll give the props to Liberty Weekly. See, this is another example of that. I was listening to the Liberty Weekly podcast. You interviewed Patrick McFarlane a few months ago, and they had an episode where they dug up all these quotes from some of the original like people arguing for a minimum wage that was all about how we have to have a minimum wage so we can keep out those disabled, the blacks, the migrant workers, keep the riffraff of society out of the workforce so that they'll die off and the good people will breed. Essentially, I mean that's literally what they're talking.
They'll be down by the river and dead and not procreate.
Yeah, you're not going to have a family because you won't be able to support one because you won't be able to make minimum wage.
It was part of the eugenics thing.
It comes back to that. So when I heard that, I was like, wow, that makes sense. It connects with the other things that I've researched about big oil and all that and the eugenics agenda and da-da-da-da. And so suddenly that whole issue had a totally different perspective for me. I always knew it didn't make economic sense, but now, that's the point. You see, you talk about cutting off the bottom rung of the ladder and people say, oh, yeah. But no, but that was the point. They wanted to cut off the bottom rung so people couldn't get on the ladder. That's the whole point of the thing. And that seems like an important... It's a little important detail that I've never heard in my life about the minimum wage that you think might be part of the discussion. So I wanted to reinsert that. So again,
she's a very smart woman, but there was no principle. There was all this mind fog, all this influence of they, them, those doing. I remember what it was. It was Ferraro and Mondale running for president in '84 or something. And I remember talking to my before she was my mother-in-law, before we got married, and who you voting for? Oh yeah, Mondale. Well, okay, why? Well, because the vice president, she's a woman, dummy. I mean, that kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, this is but why? Well, that was the only reason. So for me, then, I mean, I just I'm wanting to make nice. I didn't press it. But it kind of, for a lot of people, it's a single issue or a single perspective or a single something, that they're, all worried about on whether they're going to support somebody or not. And I'm just thinking, I'm going, if they knew the truth about the history of a lot of these things and where the party came from and why they did these different policies and minimum wages and all just everything, you have this file system that starts to build up in your head of basic, fundamental, rock-solid truths. This is a pillar in my mind here. This is a pillar. Now you start kind of building, between it and the bridge and the strength, and you got the suspension cable of kind of something. You got to get from here to here, and you're doing a century or you're doing your whole life or something, but you got it. And that was when I first started doing radio in '03. It was clear the mind fog. I mean, you got to clear the mind fog. How do you do that? It's the Corbett Report. I'm telling you, people, if you go back to the beginning of everything that he's ever done and you see whatever interests you, you'll get these pillars in your mind. And then all of a sudden, when you see something, it all starts to connect. And you go, oh, and there's other people that add to that too, but James is very quick, entertaining. It's 5 to 20 minute at most, average probably 10 minute a video? How long are your videos on average?
It's hard to say. So, some of them are 10 minutes, some of them are an hour, some of them are in between.
You're usually about 13, 15 minutes.
Very seldom under 10 minutes. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. So the other one that you did really struck a chord with me. Roberto Casanueva spreads positive propaganda. Positive waves, man. No negative waves. Positive, 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 positive. And my quantum reality of we're just going to do it and we're going to be positive and stuff happens. Tell us about why you interviewed him and the impact it had on you.
I did a Propaganda Watch episode a couple weeks ago about positive propaganda. It was called "Is There Such a Thing as Positive Propaganda" or something like that. And I was talking about there was a kind of a mainstreamy celebrity endorsed thing that was talking about cancer causes rather than let's do a fun run and raise money to go to research to cure cancer or anything. No, this was about cancer causes, and it was talking about environmental toxins that you're bringing into your home, and the chemical cleaning agents and things that you have in your home are probably carcinogenic, and you should be. And I was like, wow, that's That's interesting. So it's pretty mainstreamy and it's celebrity endorsed and it's family friendly and everything and all of this, but it's got a real message to it. And so I was thinking about propaganda, because propaganda in our minds, post World War I is a dirty word. Post World War II certainly is a dirty word. It didn't originally have those connotations. It just meant spreading information, or that's the way they intended it. But it became this connotation of they're trying to manipulate you with lies, kind of thing. The government trying to manipulate you. But so is there a positive propaganda? And that was just the title of my video. So this guy Robert Casanueva, who I guess is now in San Francisco, he's been in Portland and other places. He has this thing called Positive Propaganda People. And it's this movement, hashtag whatever, that he's created, hashtag positive propaganda, that's just putting up messages and signs, like literally on telephone poles, just with positive things. You are beautiful, or you are loved, or you can do it.
Gosh darn it, people like you.
Exactly, whatever, just a positive message. And so he started this hashtag, and so he's searching the web all the time for those words, positive propaganda. So he saw my video. He's like, hey, yeah, there is positive propaganda. Here it is. And so I saw that, and I'm like, wow, that's great. That's an example of it, isn't it? So I had him on so we could talk about it and the things that he's doing. And the best part of it is he's saying this isn't some organized movement with a leader. You must listen to me and give my messages. No, it's a decentralized thing. If you have an idea, just put it up. If you hashtag it with positive propaganda, I'll put it on the Instagram and we can help grow this. So that's it. Yeah.
Just war is over. I remember you wearing that shirt.
Yep.
It's that power, and that's why they went after John Lennon. War is over. Yep. And they go, oh, hell no, you're so not allowed to do that. Well, what kind of impact did you get from our show when we talked about your IPFS thing? Are people excited about that?
People are excited, but everyone's confused. So I'm going to need, when we get that Grandma Just button ready to go, and we can tell people, do this to set it up.
Well, we're setting it up. We're doing, a lot of stuff. And today, the first hour, we had 2 hours on with Derek Slopey, our IT guy, and an IPFS company that they heard about what we're doing. I don't know if it was from your show or our different stuff. And he go, hey, you got to talk to Ernie. Well, he comes on. And by June, they're making the Grandma Just button for you, to where you go to their site and it's your dashboard interface for doing this, and you can select the nodes and master nodes that we would be also. So it's everything that we're doing, but Grandma Just button over there. But it's competitively priced. Well, what does that mean? It's competitively priced. Whatever the hell that means. So they're going to try and make a money thing out of it. And I'm like, cool, be my freaking guest. Yeah, exactly. James needs a Grandma Just button, So it's coming. It's the quantum reality thing I keep going on about. Yep. And here it comes. And it's so... We talked afterwards, him and Derek are working on it, and one of the biggest things that I was concerned about was search on IPFS, which they're working on and doing. Yep. And Derek, now all they really want is a standards board, and nobody be in charge of anything, but there should be some standards that we set and kind of criteria of the...
Another interview in like 2 minutes here.
Thanks for staying the extra time, man.
No problem.
Things are going great. James Corbett, thecorbettreport.com. Always a great conversation, man. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Talk to you again. Not next week. I'm on vacation for the next couple weeks, but I'll talk to you in May.
All right. Thanks. Have a good time. Bye.